The trumpet and then I played the drums. I'm really a drummer. That's really my instrument. I'm not a guitarist or a singer. Became one of those by accident, a happy accident. In the early 2000s, there wasn't much going on in South London, so I left South London. I went to northwest London to a place called Camden Town. And in Camden Town, my peer group at the time, people who grew up within my circles, who were in my greater social setting and social group, we are very massively overrepresented at the Grammys. It's unbelievable, the amount of people from... Say again?
Is Dire Straits there?
No, that's before I was even born. And I believe they're from Gateshead, actually. So, yeah, after our Tesla. You've got Dire Straits. Yeah, interesting. Mark Knopfler has a cousin who's a big rock in London, though. Now you know. So within my social setting, my social group, a lot of very well-known musicians, very famous, successful musicians. Like I said, massively overrepresented at the Grammys in the last 20 years or so. And coming from a very sleepy, quiet, dull suburban South London, living in northwest London, there was just around Camden Town, places like that. The music scene was alive, it was buzzing. I was playing gigs every night, initially as a drummer, and then slowly I started writing music and producing music, and I started playing music myself. And eventually, at the age of about 22, 23, I got noticed. I got noticed as a singer-songwriter, and at 24, I signed my first major record deal with an organisation called Island Records. Island Records signed everyone from Bob Marley to U2. You heard of those guys?
Sure.
And Mumford & Sons, and Bastille, and Amy Winehouse, and various other people. A great record label. A record label had real integrity, and as a young singer-songwriter, there was no greater home to be at. Now, just before I signed my record deal, a couple of years before, so 20 odd years ago, certain things happened in my life that I realised, I had exposure to the world of celebrity in a very profound and, cataclysmic way. Being around people who were, like, mamash, incredibly famous and incredibly successful, and most of them incredibly miserable. Drugs, alcohol, partying, numbing the pain of, existence. Even when you're on the top of your game, it's a very stressful place to be. And I realised that there was much more to life. Now, I always had a Muna Pashuta. I always had a connection. As a teenager, I learned taught myself Hebrew, which was a weird thing to do, but it's then rock and roll took over and got in the way. And
there's if anyone has a black Lexus, it's blocking the neighbor's driveway. They're trying to leave.
Misgeschrenem is a real thing. You've got to keep your neighbors happy. It's there is no being other. No, I do. I understand. It's a universal problem with Stiebler.
Okay.
Got to keep the neighbors happy.
Fuel here. We'll do the fuel here.
All right. So, one Thursday night, while chilling at a friend's house, with a friend of mine who was a very successful musician, guitarist in a well-known band, supermodel girlfriend, vintage Jaguar, a bunch of rare guitars, guest list to every single party you can ever live to go to. I saw this person have a nervous breakdown. Just crashed. This man just hit the lowest ebb you could imagine. It was the one night he wasn't going out partying and taking drugs, and he just suddenly broke down on me. And I was like, oh my goodness me, like this is it then. This is the pinnacle. This is what I'm aiming for, to be an emotional wreck. And with all the success and all the money and all these things, it's just clearly there's more to life. Now, growing up in southeast London, I didn't have much, like I said, there wasn't much exposure to like authentic Yiddishkeit. But living in northwest London, suddenly there were a few more Shabbos meals I was going to. There was a little bit more, occasional invite to a Yom Tov meal with friends in the area. And I decided after this Thursday night, around the age of 20, 21, that things needed to change. And I needed to experience not just like a simple traditional Shabbos, but I need like a real Shabbos. So I decided to go to Stamford Hill. Do you know what that is? You're familiar? Very Hasidish. So I went into the barber's house in Stamford Hill and I walked in there, and Friday afternoon, and I had my asymmetrical haircut and my skinny jeans and my leather jacket, and this very sweet Yid saw me and he was like, Shalom Aleichem, and I said hello, and he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I've come here for Kabbalat Shabbat. He's like, oh, Kabbalat Shabbat, okay. He said, there's a mincha and a ma'ariv as well if you're interested. And I was like, man. I didn't really know what that was. I knew what Kabbalat Shabbat was. So he said, where are you eating tonight? And I was like, all right, I'm in, that's it. I'm done. Sorted. And I said, oh, no plans. And he said, so you'll eat by me? So I said, okay, very good. And he said, where do you live? I said, I live in Stamford Hill. I live in Camden Town. He said, Camden Town? So where are you staying for Shabbos? And I said, well, I'm just going to get the bus back to Camden. And he said, would you like to stay by me? And there's much weirder things that I've done in my life. Much crazier and stupider things, believe it or not. And I said, you know what, how bad could it be? So I stayed for Shabbos, and I stayed for the next Shabbos, and I ended up moving to Stamford Hill. And slowly but surely, I was very enamored with Stamford Hill as a neighbourhood, and I moved there from Camden Town to this, like, you know, Mayshore in Williamsburg, you know, analog that was living in London. And yeah, moved there. So I was growing in my religious awareness. Now, around the same time, I started getting noticed as a musician. And you know, within a year, 18 months, 2 years, I signed my first major record label. Now, when I signed my first major record label with Island Records, they said, you know, is there anything we need to know about you? And I said, yeah, there's this thing I keep, it's called Shabbos. And they were like, oh, we have no idea what it is, but so I referenced the Big Lebowski and they understood that. I'm starting to do bowling.